Stranger Things is back with its final season, and in this video I'm deep diving so hard that I've actually worked out exactly what happens next and who isn't gonna survive. This is my full Volume 1 recap and ending explained video with some theories that are so good they might as well be spoilers. I'll tell you everything that happens in this volume, explain what it means, where it's going, and how I think the show will end. I'll explain that crazy ending, why Vecna is scared of the cave, and what he's planning to do with those kids. We'll talk about the meaning of the books like Wrinkle in Time and more other books that people haven't spotted, including my predictions for who lives and who dies. One of those I'm so 100% on that it's actually making me very, very sad, and it's gonna ruin Christmas for everyone. If you're new here, I'm Mad Morph, and this is my movie club. If you're returning, welcome home. You can check out my full Season 1 breakdown after, and in the description I've got all my other channels, including my podcast where I read books to you for free to help you sleep. You might just need it after this. This is Stranger Things 5, Volume 1, Explained. To understand what happens next, we have to go back to the beginning. Volume 1 opens with us seeing exactly what happened to Will during the time that he was missing during Season 1. This scene takes place exactly after Season 1, Episode 7, right after Will is visited by a remote viewing 11 while she's in the tub in the high school. Almost 10 years later, we get to see what happened as Will is chased in his little Marty McFly looking jacket and captured by the Demogorgon. He's taken to Hawkins, presented to Vecna, and the Demogorgon bows to Vecna, showing that the Demogorgons have been working for him this entire time. Vecna says, "At long last, we can begin." He's been waiting a long time for this moment. He puts one of his vinticles in Will's mouth and fills him full of who knows what. Do you remember how Season 1 ended with Will coughing up a slug into his sink and realizing that he still has a deep connection to the Upside Down? Yeah, that. This will be important later. Vecna says, "We're going to do such beautiful things together, William," showing he knows Will's name and knows him already, that this was targeted and not a random kidnapping. Why this is significant, we find out at the end. And the show begins. We get our title screen, and this chapter is called The Cruel. It's 1987, and we open with Holly Wheeler, who's going to be very important this season. She sees a mysterious man through the window and waves to him, and we find out later it's an imaginary friend called Mr. Whatsit. The Byers family are living in the Wheeler house, which means a crowded breakfast table and no bacon for Daddy Wheeler. Holly is reading A Wrinkle in Time, a book about a teenage girl who wants to rescue her missing father who disappeared whilst working on a secret government experiment. The experiments involve a tesseract and allow a method of traveling across space by wrinkling it. If that sounds familiar or important, it's because it is, hugely, but we'll cover this fully at the end. This book is really important to the plot of what happens not only in this volume, but for the entire show. It's a massive inspiration. Dustin arrives to school, and this character is not doing well. He's very unhappy and dealing with what happened to Eddie in Season 4. Especially given how the town treated his friend last season, it's pretty valid. Eddie's death in Season 4 was traumatic for all of us, and it makes perfect sense for Dustin to carry that weight. He's even wearing the Hellfire Club t-shirt, which was the D&D group he was in with Eddie, that everyone accused of being a cult in Season 4 and being responsible for everything. When the school bullies try to rip it off of him, Dustin's ready to fight back, but Lucas arrives and backs him up, and so does Mike and Will. Well, Mike does, Will's kinda just there. Showing how after everything that these kids have been through and facing interdimensional monsters multiple times and saving Hawkins, they aren't going to be afraid of a couple of dicks at school. I thought it was pretty cool to see that development for these characters, that they're very, very brave now and they have grown up. Lucas later says Dustin mentioned finding the lost sheep, but what does this mean? This was one of Eddie's dying wishes and the last things that he said to Dustin before he died. So I think Dustin will actually find peace this season by saving missing kids to feel like he lived up to Eddie's wishes. Jane Hopper, aka 11, is wanted by the military and is training in secret. She runs an obstacle course and is trying to beat her own times, while Joyce and Hopper watch over like proud parents. Murray is back and smuggling useful cargo in for the party and passing on info to Robin, who uses her radio show to share that info in code with the rest of the group. They use this information to plan their cruels, hence the title. This is where Hopper goes into the Upside Down to try to find Vecna and finish the job. This is the party's current mission and goal. This is their campaign. Find Vecna and finish him. Steve and Jonathan have a renewed rivalry going on as they try to impress Nancy by climbing a radio tower. This is probably the oddest character development for this season. I feel like Steve loves Nancy, but he's over this high school BS of being jealous of Jonathan. It feels like a step back for his character. I get it from Jonathan, but it's odd to see from Steve. But I'm trusting the process, and I have a theory later on as to why this is important and how it will end. It's not going to be good. We see the Wheelers running things as Nancy briefs Robin, Jonathan, and Steve, and Mike gives orders to the party. They're going square by square on the map methodically and trying to find Vecna by a process of elimination. But then Will has a moment where the sky starts to spin and he can hear kids laughing. We cut to the sky spinning as Holly, Mike's little sister, lays on a kid's playground roundabout and is spun around. Somehow Will was experiencing what Holly was and was seeing through her eyes, and they were connected for a moment, but he doesn't know that yet. And we're introduced to a new character called Dr. K, played by Linda Hamilton, a sci-fi legend from the Terminator movies, and she's in charge of the operations here. And we see that the US military has literally occupied the Upside Down and has a base here where they're conducting experiments. Hopper gets ready to go on his crawl, and Eleven wants to go with him. He promised she could if she beat her time, but now he's refusing to accept it, showing us that he's still very much in overprotective dad mode and doesn't want to lose her like he did his own daughter in the past. He then explains to Joyce that the reason he doesn't want to bring her with him is because it's just recon. He's only looking for Vecna since the military is searching for Elle. It would put her at risk. He says if he runs into Vecna, he'll tuck tail and run, and then come back and get Elle. This makes perfect sense. Just like Joyce, I went from being annoyed at Hopper to saying that's a good reason to leave her home. Well done, Hop, good point. But this is a lie. He is like Papa, and he goes into a secret compartment and gets out something that will be revealed later on. Dustin tries to get his own back on his bully by putting a corn snake in his locker and writing Hellfire Lives on the inside. But then when Dustin goes to Eddie's grave, he finds the dead snake, the blood used to deface the gravestone, and the bullies show up and beat him up. At school, Holly sees her mystery friend and she goes over to talk to him, and a teacher sees her talking to literally nobody. Mike and Holly have a really nice moment where she says that her imaginary friend, Mr. Whatsit, says there are monsters in Hawkins and they're coming to get the children and that he wants to protect her. Mike tells her that monsters aren't real, that when he gets scared, he channels Mike the Brave, his D&D character, and he gives Holly a little fantasy figure that he made for her and says she should channel Holly the Heroic the next time she's scared. He's made her character a cleric with divine powers that can cast spells of protection, and she can open dimension doors that transport her to anywhere she can see. This is confirming that Holly is part of the party this season as she gets a full D&D character just like the rest of them. The protection spell feels like a callback to episode 1 of season 1 where Will has to choose between fireball or protection spell, and the dimension door that would transport her sounds like how the Demogorgons travel around. First of all, cute. We love a cute sibling moment, but secondly, why is Mike telling his little sister that monsters aren't real? Everything they've been through and still actively searching for Vecna, and Hawkins is literally locked down above what's going on. Why isn't he warning his family about the dangers? Rookie mistake. It shows how sometimes these characters choose protection over knowledge, and it hurts the people that they love. 42 minutes into episode 1, we finally see what's going on with Max, and the answer is nothing. She's still in a hospital bed, her bones have healed, but her mind has not, as Will and Lucas visit her. Will sees Robin in the hospital and goes to say hi to her, but catches her having a kiss with her girlfriend. He's so shook by the gay that he drops his can of Coke and runs away. My immediate reaction to Robin's girlfriend being here was very much, Britta's in this, but hear me out. There is actually a really valid and beautiful reason for them being here, and for Will seeing this, it changes everything. It's to do with him confronting his own feelings and sexuality and having an ally in Robin. This is going to be huge, and you know it from the moment you see this. Mike and Elle have a cute moment on the roof when he says in his campaigns when the party wins they all live happily ever after, but they have to live somewhere else because too much has happened in their home to stay there. Elle doesn't look particularly happy about this, and this could be foreshadowing the end of the show. Either our surviving heroes will have to leave their hometown to live happily ever after somewhere else, or 11 is going to do something to prevent that from happening. Yes, it involves time travel, we'll get into it in the theory section. There's a big gate in the middle of Hawkins which is heavily guarded by the military. This is the gate that they use to deliver supplies to the base that's inside the Upside Down, so Hopper climbs in to get into the Upside Down for his crawl. But the trucks are attacked by a Demogorgon, and Will gets his first case of the goosies for a long time. He literally sees inside the eyes of the Demogorgon while it's attacking them, and because he's inside the Demo's head, he sees where it goes next, to the Wheeler's house. The lights in Holly's room start going crazy, just like they did in season 1 when she was in the Byers household and the Demogorgon tried to come through the wall to get her. She also has a rainbow light and a poster of Rainbow Bright, which could be nods to the Rainbow Room of Hawkins' lab. Rainbow Bright is a cartoon about a girl named Wisp who's brought to a dark and colorless world and with the help of her friends tries to bring color back to it. She also has to defeat a villain called the King of Shadows. Sounds very much like a girl being brought to the Upside Down, which is always shown as dark and grey, and Vecna being the king of the shadows. The Stranger Things play is literally called The First Shadow, and the way Holly is dressed is quite reminiscent of Wisp, just saying. The poster on Holly's wall is for An American Tale, a reference that will make sense in about 5 minutes, so let's come back to it. For now, the Demogorgon opens a portal from the Upside Down into her ceiling and takes us to Chapter 2, which is called The Vanishing of Holly Wheeler. Just like the first ever episode of Stranger Things, which was called The Vanishing of Will Byers. This scene was amazing. We see more of the Demogorgon than we have ever seen before as it ragdolls Holly around trying to pull her into the portal. Holly gets loose when her boot comes off and runs to her mother, Karen, who's getting wine drunk and listening to Fernando by ABBA. Call me crazy, but I feel like Karen's spiral into drunkenness and listening to Fernando is her recalling Billy. I feel like that interaction in Season 4 awakened something in her for what's missing in her marriage, and she's been miserable since. We see her and Ted arguing earlier on and Holly running away and crying in her bed about it, which shows that this happens a lot. I feel like she's reminiscing about Billy whilst drinking and running the bath and listening to this song about an old love. Let me know what you think in a comment. The monster comes into the bathroom, but Karen is hiding herself and Holly under the bathwater. It's about to get them when Ted comes in with a golf club and comes face to face with the monster and gets sent flying across the room with his chest opened up. Karen and Holly try to run and escape, but we see what's long been suspected about the Demogorgon opening mini gateways. We see this clearer than ever before as it quickly opens dimensions into the Upside Down and back into our world to move around the house quickly. Karen smashes her wine bottle and starts to stab the Demogorgon up to protect her child. The mothers in this show are all mama bears and they'll do whatever it takes. But we cut to Nancy and Eleven bursting in and they're too late. Holly is gone and Karen is on the floor ripped to shreds by the Demogorgon. The portal that the Demogorgon took Holly through is still open but closing, and Nancy tells Eleven go, and she runs through the portal into the Upside Down just before it seals. At the hospital, Nancy tries to desperately wash the blood off of her hands. This is not an OCD cleanliness moment, it's because she literally feels like her mother's blood is on her hands. In Season 4, when she's taken by Vecna, he gives her a vision of what he says will come to pass. Hawkins on fire, a giant monster with a gaping mouth, and she saw the death of her mother, brother Mike, and Holly. So she feels like the blood is on her hands because they have failed to find Vecna in the time since and to stop this from happening. Both her parents are still alive for now, and they're being kept in the hospital. Lucas reminds everyone that it's 3 days until the anniversary of Will being taken. It's currently November 3rd, and Will was taken on the 6th. Eleven explores the Upside Down and hears Holly screaming, but runs into Hopper. The pair are reunited, but he's not happy that she's here, and they team back up to track the Demogorgon. Will explains that he's never been the same since the day he was taken, that he's back to having his now memories but more intense, and it felt like he was the Demogorgon. He says he couldn't feel it when they were in California, but now they're back in Hawkins, he's been feeling it ever since, that he was permanently changed. Robin explains this like Will has an antenna on his head and Vecna is using the Mind Flayer particles like radio waves. So when the antenna, Will's head, is close to the waves, the signal comes in clear. This is how Will is able to see what Vecna is seeing. Steve and Jonathan have a talk, and Jonathan's all, "Dude, can you stop trying to impress my girlfriend and show me up in front of her?" And Steve claims he's just her friend. He also says the only one more miserable in that relationship than Jonathan is Nancy. When Dustin shows up all beaten up and joins them. Steve and Dustin's relationship is also not what it was and seems to be on the rocks as they're really aggro with each other. It seems like Steve very much still cares for Dustin, but Dustin has been pushing everyone away since the events of Season 4. Lucas visits Max in the hospital and cries whilst begging her to wake up, saying that they can't win without her. Robin shouts, "Great Scott, the flux capacitor must be down, and me and Will will have to go and fix it." Both Great Scott and flux capacitor are Back to the Future references. That is the film that was playing in the cinema in Season 3 with Robin, Steve, Erica, and Dustin hiding from the Russians. Time travel has been hinted all throughout Stranger Things, and we'll get into this at the end. For now, it's just a playful ruse to get Will away from Joyce and to do Will's plan instead, and they sneak off to see if they can detect anything with his big bowl-cut antenna head. Elle and Hopper discover a giant flesh wall and find Holly's boot outside of it. Eleven says maybe this is why she can't find her, because it took her through the wall. This thing is like the wall from Game of Thrones, it's huge and it's fleshy, but what's on the other side? Mike and Nancy sneak in to see their mum Karen in the hospital to get more info on Holly's imaginary friend. She can't speak from the attacks, they get her to write it down, and they find out that Holly's imaginary friend, Mr. Whatsit, his real name is Henry. And we know that Henry is Henry Creel, aka 1, aka Vecna, the big bad of the whole season. Remember the American Tail poster on the wall? In that, Fievel is scared of cats, and his family go from Russia to America, believing it's a land without cats. But Fievel is separated from his family and conned by a rat who turns out to be a cat in disguise. Holly is now separated from her family just like Fievel and is scared of monsters and is being conned by a monster pretending to be a friend, Vecna pretending to be Mr. Whatsit. Will realizes that when the sky spun around earlier, he was seeing through Holly's eyes while she was on the roundabout. That he was connected to Vecna and seeing through Vecna's eyes into Holly's eyes. We see Holly talking to her imaginary friend Henry, and she asks, are the others here yet? He says not yet, and she says, but you will save them too, save them from the monsters, and he says yes, I'm going to save your friends and your family. Henry leads her into the old Creole house from season 4 and shuts the door behind her. The song Mr. Sandman by the Chordettes plays because this is clearly a dream of sorts. This is not real. It's Vecna creating a vision in Holly's mind to keep her where he needs her. Vecna has the ability to make people see things. He's used this to create nightmares and torment people with trauma in season 4. But this time around he's trying a different tactic, hiding Holly in a much happier place and using manipulation and kindness to get what he wants. Chapter 3 opens with Hopper and Eleven trying to get through that flesh wall, but neither Hop's knife or Eleven's power can open that hole up. The military roll up, and they're using a sonic weapon that is called kryptonite, which immobilizes Eleven from a big distance. Here's the thing, they haven't spotted Eleven yet, they aren't firing this at her, this machine is just constantly firing out this frequency or whatever it is that is taking down things with powers from the upside down. They're probably using it to keep demogorgons and other monsters at bay. It probably operates on a frequency that affects the Mind Flayer particles that are in everything. So Hopper has time to grab Eleven and hide. It also clues us into the fact that Eleven's powers are from the upside down. I think it's possible that at the end of all of this, Eleven will actually lose her powers when that connection is severed, but I'll talk about this in the theory section. Joyce is fuming at Will and Robin for running away, but Will stands up to her and says they have to take risks now, that Joyce's plan sucked and he wants to help the children. He says, the next time you order me to stand by your side, I wouldn't count on it. I think that will be important. Will has learned the next kid Vecna is going to go for, and it's a boy named Derek, and they're going to use this boy as bait to trap Vecna. Meanwhile, in the dream memory Creole home, Henry says he has to go for the day and tells Holly never to go into the woods because that's where the monsters are. In the mailbox, she finds a cassette player and a tape of Tiffany's I Think We're Alone Now. It's kind of odd that Vecna is using music in his own mind prison now, since we know music and songs that you like are a way to get out of Vecna's grasp, but maybe using it in the prison has the opposite effect and makes it easier to keep people in. Military find Hopper's knife in the wall and realize they must be near. They have a shootout. Elle is still disabled from the kryptonite weapon, so Hopper protects her until he can take it out. They then use their powers to take the men out, and they capture one. Will gets a leadership moment in front of the group and lays out his plan to kidnap Vecna's next target before he can get there, take him to a farmhouse far away, and set a trap. But there are holes in this plan, so Mike comes up with a new one, saying let's knock out the entire family and kidnap them all. Take them somewhere safe and watch over them, while the party hide in the family's house like it's Home Alone, and stick a tracker in the Demogorgon and use it to lead them to Holly and Vecna. Holly dances around Vecna's dream house and bakes cakes and tries dresses on while she listens to I Think We're Alone Now. She sees an old picture of the Creoles and Henry in a Boy Scouts uniform. She finds a Boy Scouts of America box in the house with a spyglass in and this old uniform. She uses the Boy Scouts of America scarf, adding it to her outfit. The outfit is giving Alice in Wonderland, it's giving Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, and it's also giving Holly the Heroic, the model that Mike gave her. What did the outfit make you think of when you saw it? Let everyone know in a comment. Someone rings the doorbell over and over, which makes Holly go outside, and she checks the mail and finds a note with a map and a compass. It says that it's from Henry, and it's a map to where she needs to go, and it goes through the woods to meet him at the X. Hopper and Elle work together to interrogate the army man that they captured, Hop with words, and Elle literally remote viewing inside the man's brain. While in there, Eleven sees a locked door in a military base which she calls a vault, that whatever is behind he doesn't want her to see, and they think there's a lot of kryptonite in there. They think they've got Vecna behind there and that they're somehow either using him with the kryptonite or using the kryptonite on him, so they decide to go to the base to get into the vault and to finally finish Henry. Erica is in science class and nerdy legend Scott is teaching the class about Einstein's Rosen bridge, named after Albert Einstein and physicist Nathan Rosen. This is the scientific theory behind wormholes, like folding a sheet of paper so two distant points touch, and the wormhole links these two places together. In theory, it could even link together two dimensions, like Hawkins and the Upside Down, or two times. Also, note that he has on the board a closed time-like curve, a CTC, a path through space-time that loops back on itself. A theoretical way for time travel to occur without breaking the laws of reality, giving more evidence to the idea that we might see time travel this season, a character loop, or the Upside Down has really been time travel this entire time and not just an alternate dimension. The actual concept of a CTC being introduced might reveal Vecna's real master plan this entire time, so let's come back to this at the end, because once all the pieces are in place, it becomes easier to understand, and what I've discovered is pretty mind-blowing. Mike and Lucas recruit Erica because she's friends with Tina, who is a sister to Derek, Vecna's next victim, so Erica can get into the house and feed them laced pie to knock them all out. If that sounds convoluted, it's because it is, but it works. Robin and Will then have a moment where Robin says, "If you saw us kissing, no you didn't, and please don't tell anyone," and Will asks, "How did Robin know?" Wink wink nudge nudge, as in, how did you know that she was gay too and liked you back? Robin tells him there were signals and nudging of elbows and stuff like that. This is Will seeking advice and help for his crush on Mike. Holly puts on a cloak and heads out into the woods to follow the map to the X. But mainly the symbolism here is that it's Holly the heroic, it's her becoming her D&D character and channeling her strength to not be afraid. The party have successfully kidnapped a family and they set up in the house with traps very much like Home Alone and wait for the Demogorgon to arrive. While Joyce, Erica and Robin watch over the family in the barn on some remote farmland that they've kidnapped them to. Joyce expresses she's always felt guilty for not realizing that Will was missing until the morning for a full 8 hours that first night because she drank cheap wine and watched Cheers all night, which partly explains her obsession with keeping him safe and protecting him now. The Demogorgon shows up and Lucas attacks it and leads it down into the trap where they shoot a tracker into it and set it on fire so it runs away. Steve, Dustin, Nancy and Jonathan are in Steve's car giving chase and tracking it. Derek, the child who's meant to be the next victim, gets the bag off of his head, which allows Vecna to see where they are, and Will can sense that he knows, and the Demogorgon turns around and is coming to the barn. Holly follows a map to a canyon wall, and someone comes up on her, and it's Max. She's alive, here in Vecna's memory prison, and the episode ends. The final chapter of this volume is called Sorcerer. Will gets his goosies and starts seeing through the eyes of the monster again as it comes to the barn door. Joyce gets ready to defend all of the kids with an axe. The Demogorgon seems to be hesitant of attacking Joyce and backs up until it's run over by Steve's car, which causes Will to feel the pain. The reason that it didn't turn Joyce into mincemeat is because Will was inside its head. His love and protection of Joyce meant it didn't attack her. He was able to control it somewhat. The Demogorgon goes through a gate into the Upside Down and Steve drives his car after it, taking Nancy, Jonathan and Dustin into the other dimension. If the Upside Down is indeed another time, this is another Back to the Future reference and they literally just time traveled in a car like in the DeLorean. Will sees a vision of Vecna's actual prison on the other side of the flesh wall, where he has some children, including Holly, hooked up with his vinticles in their mouths. We cut to a child watching The Sword in the Stone, an animated movie which features Merlin, a sorcerer just like the title of this chapter. That movie is important. It's about Merlin guiding a normal, awkward boy who is destined to become King Arthur. Merlin teaches him by turning him into different creatures, with each transformation teaching him courage, empathy, power, leadership, responsibility, the entire meaning of which is you have more inside of you than you think, and this is a big clue what's going down in this episode and Stranger Things as a whole. Steve and the gang crash into the flesh wall while tracking the Demogorgon. Will paints a big picture on the barn wall of what he saw, something important to Vecna. We now know he has the kids here, including Holly, and that he's coming for more, for a total of 12 to complete what he wants. The picture loosely resembles the Einstein-Rosen bridge, as well as kind of looks like the Mind Flayer, but let's get into what this means at the end. The military has taken a bunch of kids in the town to the military base in the center of Hawkins to try to keep them safe. They believe that 11 is the one going after these children, whether to protect them or to harm them, and they want to use them as bait. Meanwhile, Joyce and the gang plan to dig under the military base and sneak the children out. It's a reverse The Great Escape. They're going to reverse Prison Break to take them away because they think they can keep them safer and they know that Vecna is coming for them. This is when stuff gets really interesting as Max introduces Holly to her home. She's been living in this cave in a canyon wall and admits that she wrote the note to lure Holly here to keep her safe and to escape together. Let's talk about Max's outfit. At first, it reminded me of the Scarecrow from Wizard of Oz. Her hair is giving Cowardly Lion, and the clothes are giving Raggedy Ann. But what did it say to you? It's kind of a very un-Max-like outfit because it's pieced together from the things that she's been able to salvage in Henry's memories. Sadie Sink, who plays Max, said in an interview that the patches on her jeans are actually Henry's shirt fabric. Note that she also has a crab and scarab pin, which also she would have gotten from here. The entire mind prison is made of Henry's memories, and Max has been hiding here in his mind since last year to stay alive after Vecna got her at the end of season 4. He chased her to this cave but wouldn't come in. She said he seemed scared of it, but why? I'll tell you why at the end because it's not actually in this episode, but it's covered in the stage play. Max's cave home is full of things that she's collected from Vecna's memories, including a lot of books, and the most clear book on display is Vol.1 by B.F. Skinner. It's a novel about planning a utopian community built on behavioral engineering. The crux of the idea is, what if a perfect society was created by eliminating freedom and choice? The book is in Henry's memories, which means he has probably read it, and it is very much on display in this scene, which means it's important. I think it is a huge clue to what Vecna is planning. Max tells her story about going through the memory prison and ending up in 1959 where she sees a young Joyce. This is actually the setting of the Stranger Things stage show and play, and it's Henry's past where he went to school with Joyce and Hopper and Karen and also Steve Harrington's dad. Holly says that the mind prison sounds like Camazotz, which is another reference to A Wrinkle in Time. Holly says it's a dark planet under the control of It, which is a giant disembodied evil brain in this book, not the Pennywise It of Stephen King's It. She says that Meg's dad is a prisoner there, and Holly says Henry is like It, and you, Max, are like Meg's dad. Remember, in season 4, Vecna was actually moving a lot like the It in Stephen King's It by making people see stuff, and this time he's moving like It from A Wrinkle in Time. Both Its are kind of cosmic entities that exist as embodiments of evil. If you are one of the ones that believes that the Mind Flayer is actually behind everything and that Henry is in fact just a vessel himself, then you might say that this is alluding to the fact that the Mind Flayer is the It of the Stranger Things universe. Max's plan is for them both to escape the mind prison, but it means that Holly will have to go back to Henry's house and play stupid. She'll have to pretend that she never left. She's scared, but finds the courage to be heroic Holly and says, "Tell me what I need to do." Side note, it's pretty cool to have a girly girl character being brave in this season. Mike and Will have a little moment, and Will gives Mike a little playful punch whilst Robin is watching on. This is Will attempting the advice that she gave him earlier about receiving signals and seeing what happens, but it's not really reciprocated. She realizes what Will was asking about earlier, it's because he loves Mike, and she can see that Mike isn't giving the signals back. Dustin works out using math that the flesh wall goes around the entire Upside Down, which tells us the limits of the Hawkins version of the Upside Down, that something or someone built this wall around it, that it has an end, an edge, and at the very center of this circle is Hawkins' lab. So Dustin, Nancy, Jonathan, and Steve make it their mission to go to Hawkins' lab in the Upside Down and see what's there. Robin and Will have a heart-to-heart in the tunnels under Hawkins, and this scene is one of the highlights of this volume. She shares a story about falling in love with a girl called Tammy. We've heard this story before in season 3 with how Steve the Hare Harrington showed up and Tammy fell in love with him, and she realized that Tammy wasn't gay and it ruined her life. But she then watches an old film of her in 4th grade. She saw herself as a child. She realized that she didn't recognize herself in this old home movie, that she was always carefree and fearless and she loved herself, and it hit her. It was never about Tammy. It was always just about her. She was looking for answers in someone else, but she had all of the answers inside her, to stop being scared of who she really was, and when she did that, she was free. This moves Will, because this is a character we've watched be scared of his true self in more ways than one for the last 10 years since he was a little boy. This is about to be really important. Eleven and Hopper sneak into the military base in the Upside Down to try to get into the vault, but when they go to open the door, the kryptonite alarms go off and 11 is disabled. The rest of the party is digging up into the toilets of the military base where they're keeping the children to try to rescue them. Derek has been sent in to find any kids who say they've been talking to Mr. Whatsit, the imaginary friend. We know from the classroom earlier that the kids are being taught A Wrinkle in Time, which is why Henry is manipulating this and using it to trick the kids, appearing as Mr. Whatsit. The party starts to sneak kids out through the hole that they dug, reverse Prison Break style. Hopper takes out the men that come for him and 11, but he's captured by a large tentacle vine that Dr. K has in her lab here. It holds him in place, strangling him while she interrogates him. She controls it by changing the temperature from hot to cold and back again. As we know, the flayer likes it cold. Dr. K wants to know what Hopper knows that she doesn't. The military seem to be pretty clueless, thinking 11 is behind everything, and little to no idea about Vecna at all. 11 tries to help. She can't use her powers because of the kryptonite, so instead uses scissors on Dr. K, which allows Hopper to get free, grab Dr. K's keycard, and knock her out. Hopper smashes a window and tells 11 to get away from here and away from the kryptonite. He doesn't want her near here when he opens the vault. She opens his jacket and sees that he has a bomb. Hopper says it's a failsafe, but he's clearly planning to go into the vault, find Vecna, and blow them both up. He tells her he's proud of her, and he walks away and says, "I love you, Jane," while she shouts after him. He goes into the vault and closes the door while having memories of the loss of his own child. Murray is back, and he's modified his van to have a safe room for the kids to be in the back. The plan is to smuggle them out into the van and get them out of Hawkins so Vecna can't use them. But there was a burst water pipe, so the army have caught Joyce, Will, Derek, and Mike and some of the other kids and take them out into the main base to answer questions. But while they're walking across the base, Will gets the goosies and he does the thing. He says the thing. He turns and says, "They're here." This brought me joy. If you were playing Stranger Things bingo, you definitely had it down on your card that at some point Will was going to feel his neck and do a, "They're coming. He's here. I feel him." The ish hits the fan. The floor starts to split open with portals and multiple Demogorgons appear to try to kidnap the kids and fight with the military men. It is a very cool action scene, probably the best the show has done, that reminds us how deadly the Demogorgons are. One of those things took out an entire Russian prison filled with army men and prisoners, so a group just absolutely demolishes the base and everyone in it. During this, Will is seeing things from the Demogorgon's eyes, and Mike is trying to protect everyone and lead the group out. You might even say he's being very Mike the Brave, as the kids embrace their D&D characters. Lucas is underground and trying to lead two kids through tunnels and is jumped by two Demogorgons. Robin and Murray are driving the truck with some kids in the back, and they're being chased by three Demogorgons. The army uses a flamethrower on one of the Demogorgons and it affects all of them, showing us again how the hive mind is connected and affected, including Will. At the same time, the kryptonite is switched off and Hopper emerges from the vault. 11 follows him in and it's revealed what was inside because it's not Henry. At the same time, the shadow of Henry / Vecna starts coming up to the main gate to the Upside Down at the base where Mike is, revealing that it's not Henry aka Vecna inside the vault, but instead it is 11's sister, Carly aka number 8. She's hooked up to a machine in here, and it wasn't clear to me at first whether she has the kryptonite weapons pointed at her to keep her under wraps, or if she is actually being used to fuel the kryptonite weapons, as we don't actually get much time here. It just cuts away, and we'll be picking back up with it in the next volume. Vecna comes out of the main gate, and he has a badass new look. It's a sort of samurai-inspired Shredder from the Turtles kind of style, and he looks way cooler than he did in Season 4. In Season 4, his body was honestly giving Grinch, but now he's giving Interdimensional Warlord, and he wrecks the entire base with special powers. His arm is new and improved, and he resurrects his fallen Demogorgons like a master of puppets, the song that Eddie was playing in his death scene in Season 4. They attack Murray's truck with the kids inside, and him and Robin crash with the truck tipping over. Lucas is slashed in the chest while defending the kids, and they are taken. Joyce tries to stand up to Vecna to defend Will, saying stay away from him, and he uses his mind powers to toss her away. He lifts Will up in the air and drags him towards him. Vecna says, "Can you see the children? Do you know why I chose them to reshape the world? Because they are weak. Weak in body and mind. Easily broken, easily reshaped and controlled. The perfect vessels. And you, Will, you were the first, and you broke so easily." Vecna is finally explaining why he took Will in Season 1 and started all of this. He tells him, "You showed me what was possible. Some minds, it turns out, simply do not belong in this world." And we get flashbacks to the times that Will felt like an outcast. Vecna says, "They belong in mine." And he drops Will to the ground and strolls off back into the Upside Down and closes the gate. I'll talk about exactly what Vecna means when he says this and what he's planning to do in a moment. Because right now there's Demogorgons rolling up on Robin, Mike and Lucas, and all three of them look like they're about to die. While Will is watching through the eyes of the monsters, and one leaps through the air in slow motion towards Mike, ready to slice him in two. Everything slows down, and Will closes his eyes and we see into his mind, while the speech that Robin gave him earlier plays again. The visuals play like an old movie in Will's mind, just like Robin said she watched a movie of herself as a child. We see Will seeing the moment that him and Mike met, the story that Mike told earlier in the show about seeing Will alone on the swings and coming over and asking to be friends. He remembers them playing as kids in Mike's basement. He remembers drawing his mum a rainbow rocket ship. He remembers planning and building Fort Byers with his older brother Jonathan. And he remembers himself as a kid dressing up like a wizard, Will the Wise. We cut back to Mike still alive as the Demogorgon that was going to attack him is suspended in midair, held in place, screaming and trembling. We look past and we see Will in the background with his arm outstretched, his eyes completely whited over, and he is in control. We see the Demogorgon that's about to attack Lucas, and Will throws out his other arm and freezes that one too. The third is about to kill Robin, and Will throws his head back and controls and lifts all three Demogorgons into the air. And then he Vecnas them, breaking their limbs and necks, and drops them to the ground, saving the day. Will's nose bleeds, just like Eleven's every time she uses her powers, and the chapter ends. But what does it all mean? Why does Will now have powers? Why did his nose bleed? And what is Vecna's plan? Why was he scared of the cave, as well as other mysteries and questions, and my main theory of what comes next? I think I've got the answers, so settle in. Now is a good time to like and subscribe for more like this, and to join the movie club. This is a club, think of it like a book club for TV shows and movies, so of course drop into the comments and let others know what you thought of this volume of Season 5. Now, the questions. Why is Henry scared of the cave? In the stage show, which is a prequel to Stranger Things and it follows Henry's childhood, this is a cave where Henry gets his powers. In short, one day young Henry, playing with his toy spyglass just like Holly was earlier in this season, he stumbles into a cave and inadvertently activates stolen equipment. This equipment is from a nearby secret science experiment linked to the Philadelphia experiment. This is the real-world mystery of a naval vessel that went missing. In the Stranger Things universe, it's considered that it was an experiment gone wrong that was trying to make it invisible. But it was instead transported to Dimension X. In the play, this cave is where Henry uses this equipment and is transported to Dimension X, where he first meets the Mind Flayer and gets his powers. The Mind Flayer even changed Henry's blood type, and he comes back with his powers and a completely different person. Remember when Will said he was permanently changed once the Mind Flayer entered him? This same thing happened to Henry in this cave when he was a child, and that's why he's afraid of it. I think we'll probably see this play out in Vecna's memories as Max and Holly explore them in the next volume. Why does Will have powers now? Will has embraced himself in multiple ways. This has allowed him to access the hive mind and Vecna's powers. Remember what Robin said earlier, it's like he has an antenna on his head, and the closer he is to Vecna, the clearer the signal is. In the moment that he's using these powers, he's very close to Vecna, which is allowing him to fully access the hive mind. Robin's speech encouraged him to embrace all sides of himself, and that doesn't just mean him being gay, but it means the part of him that is connected to Vecna, to the Upside Down. He says he's permanently changed, so that is part of him now. So to love himself, he must love those bits too. For the last 5 seasons, we've watched Will deny who he really is on the inside, which includes his connection to the Upside Down. By accepting himself, he can access Vecna's power and save his friends. But why does this work? Everyone with powers in this show gets them from the original entity in the other dimension, even Vecna. When Henry is young, he gets his powers, and then all of the kids in Hawkins' lab, including 11 and 8, get their powers indirectly from Henry because Dr. Brenner, aka Papa, did experiments with their mums when they were pregnant using Henry's blood. All of these kids have the Upside Down inside them. In the same way that Will was made part of the hive mind, either from the Mind Flayer when it went into him in Season 2, or when Vecna filled him up with things from Season 1. But however it happened, Will is connected to Vecna and is accessing his powers. It's important to note that it's not necessarily Will with superpowers, but that he's accessing and using Vecna's powers. The creators have even said that the reason that Vecna leaves Will alive in this moment is because he still has use of him. There's still something that he needs from him, which might even show that Will is the creator of the Upside Down, and Vecna knows if he killed Will that the Upside Down would disappear. So what will happen next, and what is Vecna planning? When the connection is truly severed, when the gates are closed and Vecna is gone and all are defeated, I think we might see 11 and now Will have no more powers, which for Will might be sad, but for 11 it'll be a happy moment. She can have a normal life and not be hunted by the military. I really think there's a strong chance that we see 11 lose her powers at the end of the show. But what do you think? Let me know in a comment. What is Vecna planning? To understand this, we have to look at the two books that appear in this volume, Vol.1 and A Wrinkle in Time. Why is A Wrinkle in Time so important in this volume? The book, A Wrinkle in Time, has the main character, a teenage girl using her love for her brother to break its control to rescue him and get home. She uses the one thing that it cannot understand, which is love. This has already happened multiple times in the show and shown to be more powerful than Henry and how Vecna uses his powers. In Season 4, Henry says to a young 11 that he unlocked his strength from a memory from his past that made him sad, but also angry, focusing on a place of darkness to amplify his powers, and encourages her to do the same. Her sister, Callie, number 8, said something similar, saying she focuses on something that made her angry. She uses rage and pain as a source of strength. But when 11 defeats Henry, sending him into the other dimension in the flashback and opening the gate to begin with, it's because in that moment she focused on the memories and feelings of her mother's love, a happy memory. Max is able to withstand Vecna in Season 4 because of the music and her happy memories. She flashes through her memories with Elle, Lucas, the party, and survives Vecna mostly in Season 4. And now Will, at the end of this volume, accesses his powers by using his love of himself inspired by Robin's speech. I don't think that flashback shows his love for Mike as the reason for his powers, because it starts off with him meeting Mike and then it's memories of him, and Robin's speech was about him trusting in himself, embracing himself, not looking for the answers in others. It's all very Jedi versus Sith, light versus dark, love versus hate. I think you'll see this be really important to the rest of Stranger Things 5, and it's likely you'll see Holly being the next one to choose love. She literally has a poster center and above her bed that says love, 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 love. And the book that she's reading has a teenage girl use love to defeat the villain. So either Holly will do this, or it's a big clue of how Will or 11 will again choose and use love to defeat Vecna. But as Holly pointed out, what's important to Vecna in this book is Camazotz, a planet of perfect conformity, where choice, freedom, and individuality and expression have been removed. Everyone behaves the same way. Sounds familiar? On this planet of Camazotz, everyone is connected and synchronized. They feel the same thing, they move in the same time together, they think and act the same, just like the hive mind. And this planet is controlled by a giant disembodied brain called It. Holly literally says that Henry is like It, and we have seen the hive mind all be affected at the same time by the same thing and the same feeling many times throughout this show. Keep this in your mind while we look at the plot of Vol.2, which appears in Henry's cave. Vol.2 is a novel about a planned utopian community built on behavioral engineering. Scientists eliminate freedom, choice, and individuality to create the perfect society. This is what Vecna is building. He's trying to create a new world where everything in it would be attached to this same hive mind. In his Season 4 monologue, Henry reveals his deep hatred for humanity, the culture of wake up, eat, work, sleep, reproduce, and die. Talking of human life as a silly, terrible play that is governed by an unnatural structure. Expressing extreme disgust for the world and the way that it works. This gives us his motive for creating a brand new world in his own image where it's all controlled by him. He says himself he's targeting the children so he can shape the world with them and manipulate them. Note that when Vecna says about the children and weak minds belonging in his world, he points to his head. He's building this world inside his head, the same place where Max and Holly currently are. The bridge will be from his mind prison to the world to turn the world into his mind. But how is he going to do this? To understand that, we have to go back to science class and the Einstein-Rosen bridge. The Einstein-Rosen bridge is the scientific theory behind wormholes. Remember, it's like folding a sheet of paper so two distant points touch, allowing travel between the two. It can link two places, two times, or even two dimensions, just like Hawkins and the Upside Down. This might even explain why the Upside Down is frozen in time, as this fits with wormhole physics. There is a bridge, the gate, between the two, connecting two different points in time. One mouth of the bridge is in Hawkins and the other is in Hawkins in 1983 in a dead and unchanging state. I think when 11 sent Henry into the other dimension, she created this bridge for the first time, a link between two dimensions. But the Upside Down itself and why it resembles Hawkins at the time that Will was taken is perhaps more to do with Will being taken and him creating it with his mind. If, when Vecna kidnapped Will, it created the Upside Down in the image of Hawkins, he realized what he could do using the power of one child. Imagine what he could do with 12. Vecna himself realizes this, saying, "You showed me what is possible, what I could achieve." He's going to use the minds of these 12 children to create his perfect world. He is planning to do this by using the 12 children to create an Einstein-Rosen bridge. He's literally building it. He has their minds in the mind prison or Camazots, and their bodies are in his contraption that Will had a vision of. That fleshy place that is definitely not the Upside Down and that is either beyond or inside the giant flesh wall or Dimension X. Their bodies in one place, their minds in another. This is how Vecna will create a bridge between worlds. He isn't trying to turn our world into the Upside Down, he's trying to turn our world into his mind prison. The picture that Will paints on the barn door looks similar to both the drawing of the Einstein-Rosen bridge and to the Mind Flayer. Chapter 7 is literally called The Bridge. And I've worked out exactly how he'll do this and who will die trying to stop him. He's going to use the radio tower. Remember what Robin said about Vecna using the Mind Flayer particles like a radio signal? And in the teaser trailer for this season, we've seen a shot of the Mind Flayer particles climbing up the tower that Jonathan and Steve raced up earlier. This will be part of Vecna's master plan that he needs to do to send his particles out like a signal all over Hawkins. And what do you think the reason was that we saw Steve and Jonathan race up the tower earlier? Because one of them will now have to go up there again, but this time with the Mind Flayer all over it, and know that it's probably certain death. It's going to be an Armageddon-style sacrifice with Steve pulling Jonathan back and telling him to use the tape to propose to Nancy because it's hiding an engagement ring, and going up himself. I think this clip from the teaser is literally Steve saying goodbye to Dustin before he climbs. And because of this sacrifice, it will stop Vecna's plan. This might be his plan, but I don't think it's what's going to happen, so here is how I think this series ends. The clue to what will really happen is also on the classroom chalkboard, and it's a closed time-like curve. A closed time-like curve is a path through space-time that loops back on itself. You return to an earlier point while still moving forward. It's time travel that loops, so what's the evidence for this? From Vecna's clock imagery to the constant Back to the Future references, we're being shown for 5 seasons that time travel is a thing. I believe the Upside Down and traveling to it is a form of time travel, but we're about to see it more literally. Vecna might even be trying to engineer the perfect loop to ensure that he always becomes Vecna and the one true being in this new world. If he creates a loop, this would erase the chaos and the agency of humanity that Vecna hates, and everything would be perfectly ordered. All under his hive mind. But I think you might see 11 actually take over this and change the fate of everyone, saving her friends by going back in time, to make sure that she never opens the gate and Henry is never turned into Vecna. Remember the conversation on the rooftop with Mike where she didn't seem very happy at the idea of the party having to leave their homes because too much has happened during the campaign? I don't think 11 is happy with that as their ending, and she's going to change time so that stuff never happens and the boys get to have normal childhoods and stay in their home. That means that in the existing timeline she'll never meet Mike and never have these friendships, but she'll sacrifice that to make sure they're safe. Which means as the viewers, the show could end with the time looping back around to the boys in the basement playing D&D, but this time Will is never taken. The creators have said they would never do a "this was all a dream" type ending, but this isn't that. They were referring to the idea that we're going to see them playing the campaign in the basement and it's all just the figment of their imagination. This means it really happened. It's just a new reality was created where the boys get to have normal childhoods. What do you think? I know it's a bit crazy, but bear with me. If this doesn't happen, I also think we might see someone travel back in time to be the one who opens the door to let the Demogorgon in to get Will in episode 1, to ensure that the events of the show happen and that Will gets powers and can save his friends. My theory before has been that 11 is the one that does this. We have a lot of clues to this in my season 1 breakdown. But what if it's actually an older Will? Now that he's got powers and he's responsible for saving his friends, what if he goes back and gets himself caught by the Demogorgon to ensure he has them in the future? Putting himself through all of that trauma and hurt just to be the person that he needs to be at the end of the show. Wouldn't that be something? It would also be a bootstrap paradox, which is really popular in sci-fi writing and media. If Will is the one who goes back to open the door for the Demogorgon, then how was he originally caught by the Demogorgon to get the powers to go back in the future to open the door for himself to be got by the Demogorgon? Do you see? What do you think will happen? Let everyone know in a comment. As for how I think this series ends and what happens to Vecna, I've said this theory before in my Season 1 breakdown. Episode 1 of Season 1, the very first episode of Stranger Things, starts with Will deciding between a protection spell or rolling Fireball. He rolls Fireball and he fails, and the Demogorgon gets him. The season ends with him again casting Fireball, this time against a Thessal Hydra, and winning. I have said for a long time that I think the final battle ends with someone, likely now Will after this volume, casting Fireball. And what do you know, what we have in the teaser trailer, a shot of Vecna literally battling a fireball. This is very much happening. My prediction for the final season deaths are Hopper. I don't see how he survives this season. It's written in the stars for him to sacrifice himself for Jane and to join his daughter who passed away. For his character, it's the driving force, his defining moment, and he can heal that trauma by saving his new daughter the way that he was helpless to save his first, Sarah. Either Jonathan or Steve will die, and this will involve the reveal of the wedding ring in the tape. Jonathan is planning to propose to Nancy. Jonathan will either die, and Nancy will later open the tape and find the ring and cry, realizing he was going to propose, or more likely is that Steve finds the ring, realizes that Jonathan loves Nancy, and sacrifices himself for them both. Probably saying a final line like, "Make sure you play that tape for her," meaning, "I'm doing this so you can take care of Nancy," and Steve dies. I can also see Max sacrificing herself for Holly, ensuring that she escapes from the mind prison, but she herself has to stay behind or hold Henry off. I would love to see a Max and Lucas reunion, but I think at least one of them is going to eat it. I think all the other kids survive. I don't think you can kill Will after everything he's been through, but I do see Eleven symbolically sacrificing herself through time travel to have never been part of the group. So it's a kind of death, but she survives and she still has the memories. They just don't know her. What do you think? And who do you think will die in Season 5? Drop your predictions in a comment. If you're right, you get some egos, but you can eat them in your now memories. And that is Stranger Things 5, Volume 1, Explained. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe, that should be lighting up like the rainbow room as I speak, so you can come back for Volume 2, the finale, and some more movies and shows explained if you enjoyed this one. If you're not done with Stranger Things yet, click this video for a full breakdown of Season 1 on the channel, and if these videos do well, I'll have also done Seasons 2, 3, and 4 over the next month, so let me know if you want those in a comment. Until next time, thank you, and good night.